Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you are in this world right now. Thank you for joining us live here at Northwestern, at least Northwestern's admission YouTube channel. My name is Quinton Sprawl. I am an assistant director of admission at the university. I'm also a proud double alum, having earned both my master's and bachelor's degree from Northwestern. Back in 2009, I was in the School of Education and Social Policy, received my Bachelor's of Science there. And then back in 2007, I finished and earned my master's from the School of Communication. I've been a part of our great admissions team for about as long as I've been an alum, so since 2009. We're joined here today by a great group of academic students, other Wildcats, who are going to start the conversation in a little bit from now. We're going to do a round of introductions first, and let's start with our moderator of the student panel. Drew, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Quinton. Like Quinton, I am myself a double alum of the university. I'm a current graduate student. I'm going to be graduating in the spring, and I'm also a graduate from the undergraduate side of the university, class of 2018. I'm originally from Rockford, Illinois, and while I was an undergrad, I was studying in the School of Communication. I'm currently studying also in the School of Communication, studying healthcare and healthcare administration. But Quinton is exactly right. We do have a great group of students here to share their experiences. Hannah, why don't you go ahead and get things kicked off?
Hey y'all, my name's Hannah. I'm a third year from Oak Park, Illinois, so just outside of Chicago. I am on the pre-medical track in the honors program in medical education, but I have a major in sociology and a minor in science and human culture. Olivia O, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. My name's Olivia. I am a second year in Medill, and I have a double major in political science. I'm really excited to be on this panel today. Duncan?
Yes, I'm Duncan. Good morning, everyone. I'm a third year from Alexandria, Virginia, right outside DC. I'm a double major in journalism and geography, and I'm minoring in religious studies. One cool thing I do on campus is that I'm a writer and an editor for North by Northwestern, which is Northwestern's nationally award-winning student magazine. And I'll pass it on to the other Olivia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am also Olivia. I'm a third year from Potomac, Maryland, so also right outside of Washington, D.C. I'm studying biomedical engineering and psychology, as well as being on the pre-med track. And I'll pass it back to Drew.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. We're really excited to share a little bit about our experiences at Northwestern. Quick note, you did see that there were two Olivias on our panel today. Both valuable perspectives, but we're going to be referring to them as Olivia O and Olivia C. So just for future reference. All right, that's us. Back to you, Quinton.
I feel like we're on a newscast right now. Back to you. I love it. Again, so welcome to everybody who's on board. I hope you're all excited to learn more about Northwestern. What I'm going to do is I'll provide maybe a 10-minute overview of who we are. If I speak too fast, that's okay. Be sure to call me out, or at least any specific questions you have. Use the live chat function. We're monitoring it. So feel free to put any questions you have about what I'm talking about or anything else that's percolating in your head. Use the live chat. We're monitoring it. We'll be sure, of course, to answer it as soon as I'm done with my spiel. And we'll hand it over to the students to answer more, okay? So who are we at Northwestern? Well, at Northwestern, we are a diverse community of 8,000 undergraduate students from across the world, representing all 50 states and more than 80 countries. And we really pride ourselves on these figures because we view diversity as a resource of learning and robust engagement. Our small discussion-based classes rely on the diversity experience of our students to bring into the classroom to enhance their learning, regardless of the subject area. And that diversity could mean not just cultural diversity, but ethnic diversity, gender diversity, regional diversity, anything that makes people people. We really depend on that to shape our classroom experiences, because we really learn from each other as much as we're learning from our faculty member. So, speaking of faculty members and our academic experience, we really are proud of ourselves for having what we call the 6-school model. So there's 6 individual undergraduate schools at the university. From largest to smallest, they are the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, which has about 50% of our undergraduates and has about 45 majors or so. Then the McCormick School of Engineering, which practices a whole brain philosophy, whole brain engineering philosophy. Then the School of Communication, which has a range of areas of study from theater and radio, television, and film to communication studies and human communication sciences. The School of Music is our only conservatory school and offers both performance and non-performance concentration. Then there's the wonderful Medill School of Journalism and Integrated Marketing Communications, where I started at Northwestern, and it's a very long name for a school that has one dynamic major, journalism. In fact, a really cool thing about that school, while 70% of our students at large at the university pursue more than one major, actually about 80% of students in Medill pursue more than one major, or more than one concentration. And then last but not least is my little school, my little pride and joy, the School of Education and Social Policy, offering a number of concentrations from secondary teaching to learning sciences. And they are really known for actually attracting a lot of our undergraduates once they're on campus, having a graduating class often having a graduating class larger than their incoming classes. So your education, though, your learning doesn't just take place within that one school. You may apply to one school when you submit your application, but your learning takes place across all of the schools. And that is really aided by our quarter system. As opposed to a semester system, which has 2 distinct academic terms, a quarter system has 3 distinct academic terms. Technically 4, but not, most of our undergraduates don't enroll during the summer. So for us, there are 3 10-week terms that are fall, winter, and spring, and you're taking about 4 courses in each of those terms. If you do the math, over the course of 4 years, that's about 48 courses that you'll take in a quarter system at a school like Northwestern versus the 32 classes that you'll take at a semester school, which means there's a great opportunity to take a number of different classes and to learn, and dabble. And that's why, again, a lot of our students, about 70% of them, pursue more than one concentration. We have what we call the rule of 3 at the university to sort of guide our students in that pursuit of learning. The rule of 3 essentially means that a student can have no more than a combination of 3 majors, minors, and certificates. So that could be a double major and a minor, minor, and a certificate, whatever combination of that 3 works for you. And the reason, again, that combination works is because, as again, you'll be taking about 48 courses by the time you graduate, but of most of those courses, only about 18 of them are your major courses. So there's a great number of opportunity to just fill it into space with perhaps your electives or your distribution requirements, and ended up creating yourself a minor, which is up to 10 courses, or certificate, which is up to 6 courses. So interdisciplinary studies is really what Northwestern's all about. We call our interdisciplinary, we really do mean that you're learning more than just what your major is and more than one area of study. So at Northwestern is not all uncommon, as you've already heard from some of our introductions, and you'll learn a little bit later from our students, is not all uncommon at Northwestern. In fact, encouraged for a student to be majoring in dance and also majoring in neuroscience, or majoring in engineering and minoring in political science. There's lots of room to explore. We have over 4,600 courses in order for you to do so. While we don't have a core requirement, all of our courses or all of our schools has a liberal arts basis. And by taking your electives and your distribution requirements, you can use that collection of over 4,600 courses to sort of fulfill those requirements. By distribution requirements, here's kind of what we mean. So let's say you have a requirement to take 2 years of English, or there's a number of English courses you can take, or formal studies, for instance. When I was a student, I could have taken intro to math, which I did. I didn't like it very much, but I also took an intro to music class, which was a great opportunity, not only to take a music class and to learn from our esteemed school of the Bean School of Music, but also to take an intro to music class to fulfill a formal studies requirement. So the requirements aren't so restrictive. So that's really great. Our students have plenty of examples to share later. One of the reasons our students really are fantastic in what they do and how they access the learning is because we have such a small class size. So although there are 8,000 students on campus, we have a 6-to-1 student to faculty ratio, which means that 77% of our classes actually have fewer than 20 students in them, which also means that you'll have access directly to engage with our 1,200 faculty members. Some of them are Nobel Prize winners, some of them are members of the National Academy of Sciences, some are even Grammy winners. So we really allow ourselves to have our faculty member not just teach our classes, but also engage with our students and encourage learning and growth throughout the time of their time here at the university. So your academic journey, of course, doesn't just take place inside of the classroom, it takes place outside of the classroom as well. One of the ways in which that happens is through research opportunities. We award over $3 million every single year to undergraduates to pursue their own research. A number of innovation centers on campus are available as well for students to continue their learning outside the classrooms. That could be the Garage, which is our entrepreneurship hub, or the Night Lab, which develops digital tools for media makers, and the Media and Design Studio, which helps faculty and students create multimedia projects. There's so much to do outside of the classrooms. 70% of our students actually receive an internship, a co-op experience by the time they graduate. They may decide to study abroad in one of our over 150 different programs. Our alumni network is phenomenal, helping our students receive about 96% of them actually receive a full-time job offer or a graduate school placement or placement in graduate school within 6 months of graduating. And that's in part due to our really nurturing and accessible alumni network. There's a number of student organizations on campus as well. Our students are not just passionate about what's going on inside the classroom and then studying abroad and research, but they're also interested in engaging in extracurriculars. We have over 500 student organizations right here in Evanston, which is a great location. So Evanston is a suburban town just 3 miles north of the city of Chicago. It's about a mile-long campus, so you might hear some of our students talk a little bit later about the North Campus versus South Campus. In all, it's just about a mile long. And again, we're just outside of the city limits of Chicago and about 12 miles from the heart of downtown Chicago, easily accessible by a short train ride or free intercampus shuttle. So there's so much to learn and love and explore about Northwestern, but I don't want to go gushing too much because I'll let the students talk about that. So before we close out, though, I do want to talk a little bit about admissions and financial aid. So in terms of admission, there's 2 routes to apply. You apply early decision or you apply regular decision. Early decision has an earlier deadline of November 1st, and that is a binding route to take. So if you absolutely fall in love with Northwestern, you've come to campus at some point or in the future, you've listened to us, you bought a $100 sweatshirt, then Northwestern's a place for you. And we highly encourage you to apply early decision. By applying early decision, if you get in, you'll sign an agreement that says if you're admitted, you'll have to withdraw your applications from other schools. And that's a great route to take. Those students also receive their admission decision, obviously earlier, sometime in December. If that's too much of a binding route to take, that's fine. Wipe your brow, don't be too sweaty. January 2nd is the route you should take for regular decision. Regular decision, that deadline is January 2nd. We're very generous. It used to be January 1st. And you can submit, so whatever route you want to take, early decision or regular decision, those are your deadlines. We accept both the common application and the coalition application, whichever one you're most familiar with, go ahead and submit it. We accept both your ACT or your SAT. Self-reported scores are acceptable. We do not require the subject tests. We also require 2 letters of recommendation, one from a counselor and one from a core subject teacher. You are allowed to submit more than 2 letters of recommendation, but we simply ask that your additional letters of recommendation are distinct and they are different than what your counselor, your core subject teacher has done. That could be a band teacher, that could be a member of your clergy, that could be a volunteer coach, something like that. So someone else to provide a different perspective for you as a student. Speaking of different perspectives, there's 2 other pieces that would really allow you to speak through your application. That's your personal statement and your why and you. Your personal statement is a great opportunity for you to speak directly to us as a student. Your grades speak for you through your transcript. Your extracurriculars are an example of what you're capable of. Your counselor recommendations and your teacher recommendations, again, they're representing who you are. Your personal statement is a great opportunity just to speak to us directly. You can write about whatever you like to write about. We really don't care about what you're writing about, but we are looking to see if there is a voice there. Who are you as a person? Are you consistent in your writing? Is there depth to your writing? Who are you as a person? So that's what we're really looking for. Be sure to proofread too. Your Why Northwestern statement too, very short, supplemental, but we do strongly encourage you to submit it. It's a very simple question, why Northwestern? And what we want you to do there is not simply to go through our website or jot down some keywords that we've mentioned, but we want you to speak to us about what connects you to Northwestern. What makes you a great student in the classroom? What makes you a great roommate? What makes you a great future alum of the university? How do we benefit from having you on our campus? So why Northwestern connects with you specifically? So that in essence, the perfect why Northwestern essay really should be personal. So why it connects with you. So we also practice at the university a holistic review process in terms of how we review your application. So no one piece of the application necessarily overlooks the rest. So context matters. We really are looking to ensure that you are challenging yourself within the confines of your community. Not all schools have the same number of APs. Not all schools have a track team. Not all schools have access to summer camp facilities or something like that, but we're looking to make sure that you're making the most of the opportunities available to you. Financial aid is actually a separate process at Northwestern. So we have our admissions team and we have our financial aid team. We do not look at financial aid when determining whether to admit you. We call that a need-blind admission policy, which means that we have a completely dedicated staff over at the financial aid office that looks at your family's ability to contribute and comes up with a 100% covered financial aid award. We meet 100% of a family's demonstrated need. And what that means is that the difference between your cost of attendance and your expected family contribution, you can expect Northwestern to cover 100% in all scholarship. We don't offer loans anymore. So that means, let's say the cost of attendance is $10, way above that, but let's say it's $10 and the expected family contribution is $3. That means the difference of $7 is covered 100% in scholarships. The university has awarded over $200 million each year to about 60% of our students in renewable scholarships. So we really are trying to ensure that students that we really want really have the opportunity to decide to come to the university without financial aid being too much of a barrier. So that was a lot of me talking, but I hope we've given you a lot of context as to what makes Northwestern really cool. And with that in mind, I would like to turn it over to our host, Drew. I want to make one comment though regarding COVID-19. A lot of questions regarding it. Just know that we are trying to update our audiences as much as possible. It's going to be a link in the live chat there so that you're directed directly to our site that is talking more about that. So hope you're excited to hear from our student panelists. Drew, let's get it started.
Thank you so much, Quinton, for getting the ball rolling for all of us. Appreciate the groundwork. Everyone who's watching our stream right now, you've been doing a great job of asking some great quality questions about the university. Be sure to keep that up, ask those questions, and we'll be handling those as we come. So the first question that we're going to field is going to go to Olivia C. So we've talked a little bit about the required coursework that students have or will be taking during their time at Northwestern. Could you talk a little bit about that and specifically what the term distribution requirements means?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this kind of looks a little bit different in each of our schools. I can talk a little bit about the engineering school if anyone else wants to also jump in. But for us, we have not only our core courses that are required for the major, but also additional courses such as theme requirements or basic sciences and basic engineerings that really supplement your core coursework to give you that holistic education that Quinton was talking about. I really love this because it's allowed me to branch out and take a lot of classes that I didn't anticipate being able to take. I started out by taking psychology courses, and actually that's the reason why that I'm double majoring now. Having that opportunity to really expand what I'm learning in the classroom has allowed me to find things that I'm interested in and just in general get a really well-rounded education. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. But.
That sounded great, Olivia. Thank you so much for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next question now, which will be for Duncan. One thing that makes Northwestern stand out from some of its peer institutions is that we function on a quarter system. So could you talk a little bit about your experience in the quarter system, what the coursework is like, and kind of just the pace of that system in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Quinton alluded to, I think the greatest benefit of the quarter system is the flexibility that it provides in taking more classes. And I think it's a big reason why so many Northwestern students are able to double major or minor or get a certificate, for example, with a couple other classes in a specific area. And I think that is really a virtue of the quarter system because we are taking more classes than the average semester student does per year. And then of course, in your overall time at Northwestern. So for example, me, I'm a journalism major and that's what I came in as at Northwestern. But I really kind of fell into my other two interest areas, which are geography and religious studies, which you might notice are kind of not related to each other at all, which I kind of pride myself on. But I fell into those basically by taking classes my first year at Northwestern in those areas just to get distribution requirements that Olivia was talking about. And I ended up falling in love with those departments, those professors, and after 2.5 years of taking basically as many classes as I could in those areas, I eventually declared a double major and a minor in those areas. So I think that just goes to show how easy it is to experiment with your classes, try new things. And I think that's a real benefit of the quarter system and the flexibility that it provides.
That's great. Thank you so much. Next one up is for Hannah. You mentioned in your introduction that you're studying many different things, but one of those things was the HPME program. Would you want to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit more about that for any students that are listening?
Yeah, so HPME, or the Honors Program in Medical Education, is Northwestern's BA-MD program, so Bachelor's in Arts and then Medical Degree program. And kind of the gist of it is you're applying to med school as a senior in high school, which can seem a bit overwhelming. It's a separate application in addition to your Northwestern application, a separate interview process. One thing to point out that if you are interested in applying to that application, it does require SAT subject tests in math level 2 and in chemistry. And then what it means, if you are accepted into that program, is you're guaranteed admission to Northwestern's Feinberg School of Medicine if you maintain a certain GPA requirement that's lower than what you would need to get into a school of Feinberg's caliber. And you also don't have to take the MCAT, which is huge. Your credits are tailored so you can graduate in 3 years. That's why sometimes it's referred to as like Northwestern's 7-year program. I personally decided I didn't want to give up a year of undergraduate, so I'm taking a 4th year of undergraduate, and then for me, it's going to be an 8-year program. It's really fantastic because you kind of get a little bit of that burden taken off you that like you have to be thinking about what am I going to do this summer? That's going to look good on my med school application. I really need to get an A in this certain science course. You do have a little bit of that flexibility. And it also is a great way to stay connected to our Feinberg School of Medicine. We have quarterly dinners down on our Chicago campus, opportunities to research with faculty members at Feinberg. That's not to say that those opportunities aren't there for traditional pre-meds not in the program as well. But it is kind of a streamline into the Feinberg School of Medicine because you will be a student there. It's also not binding. You can go to another med school if you want to. Most students don't because you're already into Northwestern.
Definitely a really exciting opportunity for our applicants. So thank you for laying that out in a little bit more detail. Olivia O, we have some students that are curious about kind of the ratio of classes that are taught by Northwestern faculty and then classes that are instructed by TAs or grad students. Could you kind of lay out what a student experience is like with regard to the instruction we're receiving?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Drew. So as Quinton mentioned, we have that 6-to-1 faculty-student ratio. So that means that most students will get some kind of interaction with our faculty, which is really exciting, especially when you're first getting on campus, first getting into that college experience. A lot of classes will have a lecture that is taught by a professor and then a discussion section with some other kind of TA, which can actually be a great opportunity for you to kind of ask specific questions that you have, not feel like a fool in front of your professor all the time, and kind of get to know your kind of Northwestern community a little bit more intimately with that super small class size. A lot of the discussions are like 10, 15 students. So I think there is a lot of opportunity both to get in with the faculty and then also occasionally you will have those discussion sections with TAs that can also be a great opportunity for learning and kind of getting to know yourself a little bit better as a student.
Next up is for Olivia C. Could you talk a little bit just about some community service experience that are available for Northwestern students?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually currently volunteering every week down in Chicago at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. And this wasn't a direct opportunity that I got through Northwestern, but this connection was actually something that I found out through Northwestern's engineering course called the Design Thinking and Communication. It connects students that are first year engineers to the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab and gives you a client there who has a real world problem that you solve using engineering applications. So my client was doing physical therapy down at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is when I first went there my first year to go meet with her and her physical therapist. And I loved being there. I loved working with the people there. And so I decided to continue volunteering throughout my time at Northwestern. I think in general, community service is very accessible, especially due to our proximity to Chicago. For me, I just take the intercampus shuttle, which is free to all Northwestern students with our student ID. And it's super easy to commute back and forth. And there are just a ton of opportunities, both in community service and also in like research and internship opportunities in Chicago as well.
Would definitely agree from my experience as well. Plenty of opportunities, and you did a really good job highlighting a few of those. The next question we have is a little bit about business at Northwestern and what those opportunities look like. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that from just where I'm at now. But for students that aren't aware, Northwestern does not have an explicit business major. However, that doesn't inhibit our students because there are many roads to business on our campus. I would say a very common experience for students interested in business on campus would be to pursue a degree in economics. There's also certificates available for students that are taught through our graduate business program on campus, our graduate Kellogg program, which I'd recommend people looking into if you have any interest in that. But there's also plenty of student organizations that will pursue those interests as well. And also the Office of Career Advancement is going to be a very helpful resource if you're looking for internships, networking opportunities, things of that nature. So we don't have an explicit business track. Students still find that they're able to be successful in areas of business, regardless of that sort of specification. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities for students that are interested in business on campus. The next question is going to be for Hannah. Could you talk a little bit about how accessible research is for students on campus? Once again, research for students.
Yeah, thanks so much, Drew. So like Quinton said earlier, Northwestern allocates over $3.5 million every year solely to undergraduate research. That's money that professors and grad students can't touch. The kind of bread and butter way of accessing that money is applying for an undergraduate research grant, in which an undergraduate student will work with a faculty member, whether it's on our Northwestern's Evanston campus or our Chicago campus at the Feinberg School of Medicine. And you can get $1,000 for a quarter-long project or $3,500 for a summer-long project. And then if you don't have an idea for a project of your own, research is as really easy as looking up a faculty member who might be doing something you find interesting, sending them an email asking if they have a position open in their lab, setting up an interview and figuring out an undergraduate research position. One thing that I like to highlight is, yes, a lot of our research that we do on campus is STEM focused. As a pre-med student, I am doing a lot of STEM research, but research can be absolutely anything. We have research in the humanities. I know someone who recently did a research project just looking on the history of yoga. A lot of our students do pursue honors theses, which is like a senior year long research project. So there's tons of opportunities to be involved in research, both STEM focused and non-STEM focused, and it's really accessible. And you're really not just doing the brunt work that professors and researchers at Northwestern don't want to do. You really are hands-on involved. My friend Jess, works in a psychology lab looking on infant cognition and the development of babies. Sounds very cute. But she actually has gotten to run her own experiments and do the same work that grad students are doing. She's even had her name published on a couple of papers with the lab. So there's tons of opportunities for undergraduates to be heavily involved in research.
Next question is for Olivia C. Could you talk a little bit about both your experience as well as the general campus experience of what the culture is like on campus, what it's like to get involved in cultural organizations and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So I can talk a little bit about my experience. Coming in, I was really interested in joining kind of a cultural group on campus since that was like a part of my identity that I really wanted to explore going into college. So I joined the Chinese Students Association, or CSA, and found an incredible community there. We promote exploring just like Asian culture, both amongst our members and on the Northwestern campus. Every winter we put on a really big event called Celebration, where we bring in prominent Asian American speakers, singers, acts, really anything that you can imagine. We've had like dance groups come in, and it's just a really awesome way to celebrate like our culture and our identity. And I've found a lot of like leadership positions through there as well. I think in general on campus, there are a ton of ways to explore your identity, whether that be cultural or religious, or anything that you can really imagine. There are a ton of student groups to facilitate that. My experience just being one of them, but it's definitely something that I think a lot of my friends have explored as well coming into college.
And you did a great job highlighting just a few of the many opportunities that our students have. I want to say we're well over 500 student organizations that our students have an opportunity to join, explore, learn more about. Would definitely recommend for anyone watching to explore those options on our student website. But something that's very important is that as you arrive to Northwestern, you have some access to understand all the different resources and the different opportunities that we offer. And so Duncan, this next one is for you. What is our process for getting students onboarded to the campus? I know from personal experience that that is a part of our orientation process, Wildcat Welcome. Could you kind of highlight what happens during Wildcat Welcome, what that experience is like for our students?
Yeah, definitely. So Wildcat Welcome is probably one of my favorite aspects of Northwestern. It's our week-long orientation program where we, bring in all of our new students, both transfer students and first years on Northwestern's campus. And it's kind of this crash course in Northwestern academics, social life activities, culture, and you'll come in with a peer advisor. I'm a peer advisor, and you'll have a peer advisor who is in your same school. So I'm a peer advisor for Medill students in the School of Journalism, or if you're in the engineering school, you would have an engineering peer advisor, and you'll be paired up with about 15 other students in an orientation group that you will go through like all of your trainings, all of your orientation exercises, your enrollment into classes actually during that week. And it's a great opportunity just to get to know a few other people who are in your academic area with you, and then you get to know them, and you have a peer advisor right there guiding you along the way. And you will also be paired up with a faculty advisor who will kind of guide you in that experience for enrolling in classes in particular, and you can just pick their brain about any suggestions or advice they might have. So that's just a really awesome experience to open you up to the campus and get you connected to upperclassmen right from the get-go. So I think that's a really incredible opportunity. One cool tradition that we have at the beginning of Wildcat Welcome is something called March Through the Arch. Kind of a big landmark on Northwestern's campus is the Weber Arch, which is kind of like the unofficial entrance to Northwestern. And every year on the first day of Wildcat Welcome, all new students walk through that arch together, kind of signifying their entrance into Northwestern as undergraduates. And you'll have kind of a tunnel going through it with the marching band and peer advisors and current students and your family members cheering you on. So I think it's a really awesome experience as well. And I think that just goes to show how supportive and creative and fun that entire experience is for all new students.
I definitely agree with a lot of the points you're making. Really awesome that we have a robust system to help students transition to campus. This next question is going to be for Olivia O. We've talked a lot about the in-classroom experiences and the professional opportunities our students have, but could you talk a little bit about how students spend their time out of the classroom? What is nightlife like on campus? How would students, spend a night over the weekend or something like that? Just curious to hear some perspective on that.
Yeah, I think one of the great benefits of Northwestern is that proximity to Chicago. So whether you want to stay in Evanston over the weekend and kind of check out a lot of the local restaurants that we have, and there are a lot, or go into Chicago and kind of have like a fun like city weekend, that's all possible and super accessible because of the transportation that we have, whether that's the intercampus shuttle, which was mentioned earlier, and that's free, or the L, which is just a couple of bucks and gets you right into the city to do pretty much whatever you want for the weekend. So that's kind of exciting. Another way that people kind of spend their free time with their friends is through Greek organizations. I'm in a sorority, which I've found to be a really great way of integrating into the like Northwestern social community. There's a lot of different opportunities for doing activities with your Greek organization, or yeah, just in Evanston or Chicago in general. And even when you're first starting out as a freshman, that there's so many different ways built in for you to kind of make friends, whether that's your residential hall or like Duncan mentioned, Wildcat Welcome, that social life is really something that you can get started in right away. And it's one of my favorite parts of going to school is all of the people around me.
Definitely agree with that as well. This next question is for Hannah. Curious a little bit, just to speak from your experience, was there anything when you arrived to campus, was there anything that surprised you about the Northwestern community, or something that stood out to you a little bit the most that you didn't expect?
I think one thing that really surprised me in coming to campus was how frequently students ask for help from the people around them, from their professors. When I came to Northwestern, I imagined, oh, it's this higher institution and everyone here is so smart and has it totally figured out on their own, and people just get their assignments and they sit in the library and they do them and they're fine. And for some students, that's how it works. And for some students, they're really relying on the network of support that they've created, whether it's been their peers or whether it's their professors. All professors are required to hold office hours at least once a week. Most professors are holding office hours 3, 4, 5 hours a week. I've heard of professors bribing students with candy to try to get them to come into their office hours. I left a coffee mug in my physics professor's office hours, and he would always give me tea when I came in there because I wasn't very good at physics that quarter, so I was in there a lot. There's tons of opportunities to ask for help. And I was worried that that was going to be something that was kind of looked down upon. Oh, you don't really have it figured out. And that could not be farther from the truth. Everyone here is here to support you. And one of my favorite things about Northwestern is how collaborative it is.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. This next question, we're going back to Olivia O. Someone had to ask it, what's the weather like here at Northwestern? Despite our best efforts, we cannot keep it 70 and sunny day to day. There has to be a little bit of variation. And Olivia, I know that was a big change for you. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is kind of my favorite question ever because I neglected to mention this earlier, but I am currently outside in San Diego, California. And this is where I grew up. And this is kind of the weather that I'm used to. It's like 70 degrees and a little bit cloudy right now. So coming to Northwestern was definitely a transition, and one that everybody I knew warned me about. They were like, do you know that it gets under freezing there? Like, are you sure you still want to go? And I mean, I was like, yes, I do. And then when I finally got into winter quarter, which is kind of like the most intense time to be on campus, especially my freshman year when we had some very low temperatures, I just kind of felt like I was like kind of accomplishing something. It was like part of me like going out into the world and like figuring out like where I wanted to be in life. And now I like literally can't imagine it any other way. Like I love the changing seasons, and I mean, you get the super cold temperatures, but you also get like fall leaves and springtime, and there are just some really beautiful things about it that I would not trade. However, if you do find that the winters are too much, we also have some opportunities to study off campus during winter quarter. There are ways that you can adapt this to yourself. I actually wasn't on campus this past winter, not because I hate the weather, but because there is a Medill program that runs winter quarter, a couple Medill programs that run winter quarter that get you off campus. So I honestly grew to love the winters and everything about the weather, but it is definitely an adjustment getting through the snow. But I think it's one that if Northwestern is right for you, you'll find is worth your while.
Great. It's always nice to hear an inspiring story about how just one of our many students can brave the weather that we offer here in the Midwest. Moving on now, we'd like to hear a little bit from Duncan, talking a little bit about some of the traditions that we have on campus. I like that you mentioned one earlier, the March Through the Arch tradition we have right at the start of our orientation process. Could you talk about any others, a few of your favorites, what you're interested in?
Yeah, so one classic one is painting the rock at Northwestern. So the rock is Basically what it sounds like. It's a big rock sitting in the middle of campus, and it's only a few feet away from the arch. On that march through the arch, you actually go right by the rock, and it's right in the middle of a humanities quad of academic buildings, so right in the center of campus. And we also have a 24-hour live camera showing the rock all the time. So if you just want to Google the rock cam, you can check it out too. But that's kind of one of our campus landmarks. And it's a great way to advertise any events on campus, student organizations, things like that, because different groups can paint it with their messages at any point in time. There are only 2 rules for painting it. You have to paint it under the cover of night, and you have to guard it for 24 hours before you get to paint it. That's something I love on campus, and the 24-hour period is perfect, I think, because it guarantees that anyone who does paint the rock has their message up for at least a day. Which I think is a worthwhile message to have if you go through that effort of painting it and promoting your student organization or an event coming up. So that's one great tradition that we have on campus. Another one that I like to talk about usually is Dillo Day, which is short for Armadillo Day. A funny name, but it is actually a student music festival that happens every spring at Northwestern, usually in the last weekend of May or early June. And that's where we bring in a lot of famous professional music acts, bands, singers, things like that. And we have about 5 or 6 performances throughout the day, including midday headliners and a night headliner. That's all through our student organization known as Mayfest, which brings in those acts and puts on the performance. It's one of the biggest student music festivals in the country, where we bring in about 10,000 people to visit for that those concerts and that festival, and it takes place on Northwestern's Lakeville, right on Lake Michigan, one of the most beautiful areas of campus as well. So it's a really awesome way to celebrate the end of the year with your friends and just enjoy the weather once it is better and warmer outside. So I think those are a couple of classic examples of great traditions at Northwestern.
Thanks so much, Duncan. This next question is going towards Hannah. Could you talk a little bit about the experience of dining on campus? What is food like? I'll start by saying I remember I was very well fed. That's one of my best memories of Northwestern, being very well fed, but could you share that in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, so we have 6 main dining halls on campus, scattered throughout campus. 7 if you include our Norris Student Center, which isn't a dining hall per se, but has most of our on-campus restaurants. All first-year students are automatically loaded onto the unlimited dining plan. What that means is with your student ID wildcard, you can swipe into any one of those 6 dining halls as many times a day as you want. Once you're there, it's all you can eat buffet style, so the food truly is endless. It's not only delicious, there was a soft serve machine in the basement. I lived in elder residential community, and we had a dining hall in our basement. And there was a soft serve machine there, and I ate way too much soft serve my first year at Northwestern. But food is delicious, and then in addition, it's also really accommodating if you do have any dietary restrictions. Gluten-free, you keep kosher, dairy-free. My friend Julia is strictly gluten-free and dairy-free. Our freshman year, we went to breakfast at one of the dining halls, and the chef actually brought her out her own plate of scrambled eggs that was made on like a specially prepared, especially clean stove. They were on a first name basis. The chefs really want to make sure you're getting the food that you want and the food that you need. And then in addition to those unlimited meal swipes, you're given 150 dining dollars a quarter, which are kind of 150 tax-free dollars loaded onto your student ID that can be used at any of those on-campus restaurants. In our Norris Student Center, we have cafes scattered throughout campus as well. After your first year on campus, you can select a dining plan. You don't have to be on a dining plan. If you are living in a residential hall, like you likely are on a dining plan, but there are exceptions to that. But you can choose how many meal swipes a week you want, how many dining dollars a quarter. One of my favorite things about those dining dollars is they do roll over quarter to quarter. So at the end of my freshman year, I was left with about $125 with 2 weeks left of Northwestern of my first year. So I kind of bought out one of the convenience stores and had a lot of my friends over to my residential hall room, and we just kind of hung out and ate a lot of chips because I didn't want to let that money go to waste. But dining is really fantastic, really delicious, and definitely accommodating. So nothing you need to worry about.
That's great to hear. I know that's a very important factor for students as they're doing their college search process. Olivia C., if you could kind of keep the ball rolling. Hannah mentioned a little bit about how food is a very necessary part of the first year residential experience, as well as just res life in general. Could you kind of touch and expand upon that topic?
Yes, for sure. So there are a couple of flavors, if you will, of residential life on campus. The first one being a residential hall, which I think Hannah mentioned. So that's kind of what you think about in the movies that they show, like a typical dorm style, where it's usually co-ed living and you have mostly doubles, but also some singles and some triples. And you have an RA or residential assistant on each floor. So that's what I lived in my first year. Typically, residential halls are usually clustered together. So there will be like 2 or 3 in one area, and those will form a residential community. So Hannah was talking about the dining on campus. So usually in a residential community, you'll have shared amenities among them, a dining hall being one, as well as typically like a gym and maybe a study area. So that's like one kind of flavor of residential life. We also have residential colleges that are a bit smaller, and they're typically connected with a theme. So we have an engineering residential college, a communications residential college. You don't have to be studying that theme, but you should have some sort of interest in the topic, since usually they'll bring in like speaker events or have just in general events surrounding that, as well as have amenities related to the theme. So I think our residential college for engineering has like a 3D printer in their hallway. So that it tends to be a bit more tight knit of a community. But in general, I think residential life really provides an opportunity for you to get connected with students right away joining campus. Duncan was talking about Wildcat Welcome, and part of that is having all the first year students move in on the first day of Wildcat Welcome, and also being a peer advisor. It's definitely a bit of a chaotic process, but it's also really fun because everyone's arriving on campus together, and starting from the first night, you have events surrounding your residential hall and with your RA and with your floor. So just being on campus right away, you have that community. So I have found a lot of friends through that. And I don't know if anyone mentioned, but we do have a 2-year live-on requirement. So you are required to live on campus, whether that be in our residential halls or colleges, or in our Greek life housing during your first 2 years before you can move off campus.
That all sounds great. You mentioned a really great point at how first year housing or just residential life in general is a great way to kind of find a community on campus, find some friends, fellow classmates. Olivia, if you could talk a little bit, because you mentioned before how you're able to find some community through your Greek organization. Could you share a little bit about just other opportunities that students have to connect across campus, maybe some student organizations, something like that?
Yeah, so being in Medill, the School of Journalism, one thing that I've been able to find a lot of community through is student publications. So I am currently a producer and reporter for Northwestern News Network, which is the TV station on campus. So that has really provided me with the opportunity to meet a lot of close friends with like very similar interests to me, and kind of build something together, which I think builds a lot of community. I think a lot of people who are involved in student organizations would attest to that. As Olivia C. mentioned, there are also a lot of cultural organizations you can join, and that includes, religious organizations. And then also there are cultural fraternities and sororities, multicultural fraternities and sororities, which provide a great place for community for a lot of different people. And there are also different types of like business fraternities, really whatever your kind of interest is. As Drew mentioned, there are 500 or more student organizations at any given time. So there's really a way for you to meet both people with very similar interests to you, and then maybe with like a sorority or fraternity, people who have very different interests from you, who are just interested in socializing and kind of supporting each other through different parts of their organizations.
Sounds great. We have some questions from students asking what it's like to choose an academic concentration on campus and what the advising system is like, and I can speak a little bit on that. What's really nice with the quarter system is you have so much flexibility as a student to explore if you are looking to possibly look into different areas of study. So as a student, you are going to be applying to a specific academic concentration in one of our 6 schools when you apply. You can also apply undecided. Undecided is one of our most popular areas of study. So if you're still trying to figure that out, you are not alone in that regard. But if you are on campus and you're trying to declare that major or possibly switch a major, it's not a huge process. It's actually quite simple. It's a matter of speaking to your advisor, filling out some paperwork, and some people have had that wrapped up as soon as a few hours within the day. So it's really not too tough of a process. We really want to encourage the opportunity for students to explore across different areas. I mentioned a little bit about how you'll be talking to your advisor. We do have a very robust advising system for our students. Anytime you are pursuing an academic concentration, you'll have an academic advisor specialized to that area. So let's say you are a student in the School of Journalism, like some of our student panelists are, you'll have a Medill advisor. But let's say you're also pursuing an area of study in, say, the School of Music. You'll also have a music advisor as well. Let's say in some crazy world, you're also pre-law or on the pre-medical track, you're receiving an advisor through that area of study as well. Basically, you're always receiving specialized support from our advising staff that we have here on campus. And one thing that really lends itself to that I want to speak on specifically from my experience is that with all of that support, with all of that advising, and these resources you have on campus, you'll definitely be connected very early on into our alumni network. We like to think of our alumni network as world-class because just the talent that exists within it, but also the desire to help fellow Northwestern students and fellow Wildcats, regardless of when you graduated or how recent it was. I can speak from personal experience that after I graduated and moved into my graduate program, there's definitely a lot of connections. People are wanting to help out fellow Northwestern alum. It's so crazy being able to spot Northwestern alum out and about in the streets if they're wearing their gear, being able to say "Go Cats" to everyone out in the wild is also a very nice benefit. But know that you'll be connected into that resource before you even leave campus. So you're already going to be benefiting from it before you leave campus. So just a little bit about advising, classwork, and declaring majors, as well as getting involved in our alumni network. Now, a very important question that I'm going to toss out to two of our panelists. This is for Olivia C. and Duncan. We had a student ask, why did you choose Northwestern? Or better put, why Northwestern? That's a very important question to us, obviously, because it is one of our essay prompts. So I'd love to hear a little bit. It doesn't have to be word for word what you wrote on your application, but just a few of the reasons and rationale as to why you chose Northwestern. Duncan, why don't we go ahead and start with you, and then you can pass directly to Olivia C.
Yeah, this is a question I love, and it's something I think about all the time. When I decided to come to Northwestern, I think it really called out to me because of the journalism school. In high school, I was really interested in writing, and I really enjoyed storytelling and reporting and meeting new people and traveling. And I think that really made me interested in journalism in college. And obviously Northwestern having such a prestigious journalism program that definitely jumped out to me. But I think really what called out to me as well was the interdisciplinary nature that we've talked about so much and the opportunities that you can have across different schools and different academic disciplines and areas, and that you don't really have to choose any one area. And I think that just goes to show that became a reality for me, being so lucky to just kind of fall into a geography double major and a religious studies minor, things that I wasn't even necessarily interested in high school. And I just kind of fell into by chance because I was so lucky to take those classes. And then another thing that I would love to highlight as well is the people. I think we are so lucky to have people who are interested in and passionate in such different things on campus. And it's so cool to be friends with people who are incredibly talented musicians, and then engineers and journalists and pre-med people and things like that, and hang out and pick their brains about what they're interested in and their passions. And I think it's so cool to be in kind of this melting pot of interests and passions that you can, sometimes draw upon. And, if I'm in a computer science class where I really don't know what I'm doing, I can call my engineering friend or my computer science friend and ask for help. And I think that just goes to show how supportive of a network and collaborative of a school that we have, which I think really makes Northwestern special. And with that, I'll call out over to Olivia C.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely for me, kind of in the same vein, I chose Northwestern because I really wanted to explore a lot of different fields. I knew I was interested in engineering but also sort of didn't know what that meant because my high school didn't have a ton of engineering courses, but also knew that I kind of was interested in being pre-med, and I thought Northwestern would give me the opportunity to, you know, to like try both out and see which one I liked and be able to pick one. Not only did it do that, but because of how indecisive I am, it allowed me to stick with both. So I really love the opportunity from the quarter system to be able to take so many classes and explore so many different fields. Not only did I stick to those, but I also added a psychology major, and just being able to explore all of that is something that I don't think I would have been able to do at a semester school, just given the sheer amount of credits that I would be able to take. Another thing that I really want to point out is that I definitely am a student that works by the like work hard, play hard mentality. One thing that I love about Northwestern is that not only do you have top academics, but one thing that I love to highlight is our sports. So we are a part of the Big Ten Conference, which means that we are actually the only private school in the Big Ten. And one of the biggest perks is that we get free admission to all of our sports games with just our student ID. So I love going to those sports games with my friends. I think it really pulls a lot of Northwestern students because every game they kind of also give out like free gear, and in general it's just really exciting to see everyone have their purple gear on and be able to cheer on our Wildcats together. So that's also something that I've really loved being in the Northwestern community, is that balance between like academics and also having fun.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. It's always nice hearing about the reasons why folks stayed and kind of the similarities, but also the differences that exist in that answer. We're winding down a little bit now. So Hannah, this next one's for you. If you could quickly just share a little bit, as much as you want to share, what's been the most interesting or thought-provoking class that you've taken during your time here?
So I would say that the most interesting class that I've taken at Northwestern, and one that I like to highlight because it's so kind of bizarre, is detective novels in world literature. So because of our distribution requirement in Weinberg, I had to take like some sort of literature and fine arts class. And yes, I could have taken Introduction to Fiction and read and analyzed Frankenstein and Jane Eyre, and that would have been great and fantastic. But I decided I wanted to do something a little different. And instead of analyzing Frankenstein, I got to analyze books like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and read and write about what that meant for the welfare state in Scandinavia. It was like a fantastic class. It was something that I never imagined I would ever be taking. I'm personally not super excited about like very deep English classes and like literature and writing papers and analyzing, but that class really hooked me. And I think it just goes to show that no matter what the distribution requirement is or what field you want to study or don't want to study, because of the broad spectrum of classes that Northwestern offers, you're going to find something that not only really interests you, but also really excites you. It's really great to be excited to go to lecture rather than having it be something you dread, because there are fantastic students and fantastic professors, and you are really getting a great education about something that you decided that you wanted to learn.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and thank you to all of our panelists. I hope for our listeners we've been informative to some sense. Maybe we piqued your interest on a few different things. Be sure to follow up and research those things, but we're going to pass it back to Quinton as we do some final wrap up.
Awesome, but wait, there's more. So question for you all. One word to describe Northwestern. Let's go with you, Drew.
Ooh, great question. I would have to say my one word would be opportunity. Olivia C., what's your thought?
I think that my one word would be interdisciplinary. The other Olivia, would you like to go?
Yeah, my word would be excited. Hannah?
And then I think I would go with collaborative. Duncan?
I'll go with passionate. And back to you, Quinton.
Back on the newscast, I love it. I'm gonna go with possibility. I think I used that once before, but it still stands. So thank you guys and gals, cool cats and kittens, for joining us today on YouTube. We hope that you've enjoyed this student panel and you learned a lot more and you're very excited about learning more. Feel free to subscribe to our Northwestern Admissions channel on YouTube. There's tons of information there. We're continually going to be producing more and more cool chats. So feel free to to subscribe there. Also, be sure to check out our website. There's tons of information there. You can do a virtual tour. You can follow our social media channels. You can even have a conversation with some current students. So feel free to stay engaged. We hope this was informative. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks to all of our Wildcats, our current student panelists, and see you next time.